Hello and welcome to Sports R Us, where we take a stroll through the aisles of sport with a shopping list full of debates. Today I am joined by
Lynsey Grogan,
Ernie Bratherton,
Bobby Mclellan,
Oliver Shortland,
and Harry Stratton.
Welcome everyone. Coming up on the show, a huge debate on turf versus grass, and we'll take a look at how £1,500 can help grassroots rugby in East Lancashire. But first, Harry, you've got something interesting because you've been telling me that women are only going to ice hockey games to ogle at the fellas with big shoulder pads and large sticks.
Yeah, that's what I was told by the Financial Times. They published an article titled How Romance Readers Rescued British Ice Hockey. And the premise of the article was that in the past 15 years, attendances at British ice hockey games, have increased by 75%, and 45% of all attendees this year have been women. And the link is that ice hockey romance novels have increased in sales monumentally, and the writer claims that this is the reason for such an increase in attendances, especially women. If you're unfamiliar with romance ice hockey novels, as I assume most people are, there's a little clip here. I think I was going to ask Lynsey to read it, but you told me you didn't want to.
No, I don't think I should. I think Snoop Dogg should read it out.
He's as serious about his sport as I am, which makes for a perfect no-strings-attached situation. The added benefit is Rye is the sweetest guy, so we become great friends through our mutually beneficial arrangement. I can't believe you're still around with him. He's like double your size. How does he not crush you?
So you get a feel for what these romance novels are about, and to give you a bit more of an idea of what the article was suggesting, the writer described her first experience at an ice hockey game in Manchester, and she claimed that there were a gaggle of women with their noses pressed up against the plexiglass, watching these men gyrate in the warm-up. Just interesting language to use, very suggestive, as I've said. And the claim is that all these women come to these ice hockey games from reading the books, but now stay just to romanticise the players.
Lynsey, I'm going to come to you first. Surely this is just absolute waffle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that in itself is very eccentric, and like as a woman, that is very degrading to say that all women are there for that same reason.
Yeah, I'm going to spin it on you a little bit. I know you're a big football fan. Imagine an article was written about female fans watching male football, and you got into it through, hypothetically, football romance novels, and now you've stayed just to look at the Tottenham players warm up and look good in the warm-up. How would that make you feel?
Well, it's appalling, really. I think that it's just disgusting that all women have been generalised in this sport, and it actually sets us back as women trying to say that, you know, not just men are into sport and it's not just a male activity.
But, and I'm sure we'll hear soon from the interview that Harry did the other day, but it's a very interesting situation because it does sound like a lot of it initially came from these romance novels, and a lot of this rise has actually come from that. So I'm surprised to see that these clubs aren't marketing it, especially for a sport in the UK, which is it's not as popular as your footballs, your rugby's, your crickets, etc. But I'm surprised they're not marketing it and not having these books at the rinks where you can get them signed, or the writer down, etc., etc. It feels like they're missing out massively on a certain audience.
Yeah, I think if this article had been written in a different way, where it was almost promoting these books and how well they've done to help ice hockey without the suggestion that women are there sexualising the men, the clubs could have bounced off this and marketed using the books, but the article doesn't help them. And I think we've got to look at why women do want to go to ice hockey games, if I'm going to sit here and claim that the article's not the reason. But before that, I did speak to an ice hockey fan, Kate Gleave. She's also a Her Game 2 representative, and she gave me her initial reaction to the suggestions the article was making.
It's a fact that a lot of women did get into ice hockey through romance novels. It's just a fact. But nobody is staying for the fantasy of, oh, and he might see me in the crowd and take me home.
I'm going to throw something to the table here. What is wrong if they do stay for the fantasy? I mean, at the end of the day, right, they're getting money in for the club. There's getting more fans in there. They're paid for a ticket. They're not like they're just watching the TV to stare at them. They're paid for a ticket. They're getting more money into the club, more women watching it. Maybe it's not for the right reasons, but what's wrong with it? I mean, at the end of the day, they managed to get Snoop Dogg to read an audiobook, so...
That is a fair point, and women may be going there just for that sole reason, but the way the article seems to have been written, from what you say, Harry, is just, it's a massive generalisation of all women, and that's what I have a problem with.
Yeah, I think if the article stated, which something Kate told me, was that there are a small minority of fans that go to these games just to get attention from the players. They actually hang around outside the locker rooms sometimes. If that had been specified, I don't think there would have been a problem, but as you said, the generalisation of all female ice hockey fans is what's caused this outrage, and the clubs have got on social media and distanced themselves from the article with statements which really says all you need to know about how the ice hockey community feel about this.
Again, just spinning it back though, you've seen a lot in football, especially over the last 10, 15 years, with players now going from being famous for being a footballer to famous for being something else. What's wrong with doing that in ice hockey? What's wrong with girls liking this player and going, you know what, I'm going to wait outside the locker room to try and meet him? What's wrong with that?
Yeah, just another thing. I think it's a poor reflection in the article on the generalisation of the players as like gyrating. I think it's sort of quite harsh on them all, really.
Yeah, it does really feel like it's kind of something you'd see 15, 20 years ago, not in 2025. It's not a very modernised story. Yes, these novels are a thing. Yes, people read them. Yes, people do go to ice hockey because of them, but I think it's the generalisation that has really caused the anger.
Which is so ironic because the article was written by a woman. You'd think this would be written by
100%.
some fat guy smoking a cigarette 40 years ago, but it's not. It's 2025 and a woman has written this article. That's just it seems so unbelievably backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think going back to you, Ernie, not letting your point go away, I think the main issue arises, I think I've already said, from the entire generalisation of every single woman at an ice hockey game is there for the men and not for the actual sport. Kate, who I spoke to obviously, gave her reasons for why she loves ice hockey other than, looking at men.
I have ADHD, so it's quite difficult to keep my attention for an hour, but hockey captures my attention from the minute that puck drops till they blow the whistle at the very end, and it's because it's fast. And as well, I think there's a certain stop-start nature of it, because obviously they stop the clock every time there's a break in play, and that happens quite a lot, and then they'll put some music on, and then you're right back into it. I think it keeps your brain there. As well, you've got the physicality.
Yeah, I do think it's a very important point, and it's really important to raise the fact that it is a massive generalisation. But I do think before we wrap it up, it is important to know that the clubs have got a big opportunity here. They've got this 45% women demographic. They've got the 75% raise in the last 15 years. They've got to capitalise on it. If they don't capitalise on it, they risk the sport continuing to not reach the heights that it could. Look at it in America. It's massive. It's top 3 sports in America, and it attracts huge numbers. I went over to Canada in the summer, and it's everywhere. It's massive. They have that opportunity. They've got this rise in viewership. They've got to capitalise on it. And if that means that they market it better, and they do market it slightly towards these novels and whatever, without the overgeneralisation, I do think there's a chance that in 6 months' time you can look back on the article as maybe a good thing for the sport, in the sense that it's a wake-up call for them to drive the popularity that they do have.
Yeah, it's definitely caused a stir. I think it's done the right thing, but it's gone all the complete wrong ways about it. Harry, thank you for bringing that up for us.
Turf burn.
Oh my God. Why? Oh, why did I do that?
Right then, guys and girls, next up we are talking about the big debate that we had to talk about. Turf or grass? Money from the turf or traditional playing on the grass? Come on.
Right. I think the money is a big side of it, especially in the non-league kind of football. There's a lot of Astroturf pitches. It's massively beneficial for those clubs. They can rent it out to the community, make a lot of money back from it. So from a non-league perspective, massively beneficial.
Yeah, onto that, I actually have a stat about that. So last year, Sport England reported that 120,000 grassroots football games were postponed due to waterlogged pitches.
And that's crazy when you look at what you've just said there, with being over 5,000 to 6,000 clubs across rugby and football in the UK with these pitches. That's going to help cut out what Lynsey just said there. And I do think it's important to mention that a majority of them are at that young age group football. And you do see that towards the professional game, National League North, South, up to like the Scottish Premier League, that sort of level, which still do have it, and into Scandinavia, the issue lies more at the professional game than the non-league game.
This is where the debate comes in, I think, because yes, like you said, there's so many cancellations at a minute, and an Astroturf pitch, yes, you can play on all weather all year round. However, it seems like all these major clubs, especially in rugby as well, which we'll touch on in a second, all of these major clubs are thinking, all of them, just about the financial aspect that they can get, and they're not thinking about player welfare. So I went down to Fylde Rugby. I spoke to Toby Harrison, the club captain, who said a little bit about just how bad these Astroturf pitches can be.
For burns and stuff and cuts and stuff like that, and also like hygiene levels on it and stuff. I know a lad I used to play with at Preston called Adam Howard. He played on FB, got a little cut on his leg in the game, and then had a burn on it, and then he ended up getting sepsis and infections off it. So and quite a few lads ended up getting infections in the burns and stuff like that.
And more on the burns. I mean, that is a massive con of Astroturf pitches, but you know, in recent years, they've allowed rugby union players to wear leggings and use petroleum jelly to battle that. So I actually think, like, the same way that injuries can happen on Astroturf pitches, they can also happen on grass as well. Players' ankles can get caught in bulges in the grass, whereas an Astroturf pitch, it's flat. So there's none of that. Obviously, you do have bigger injuries, as we've seen, but
the give isn't there when you're running around these pitches, and Harry, I'm sure you'll touch it in a minute because you play football quite regularly, but the give, it just isn't there. When you're running on a grass pitch, you know you have that protection in the soil, in the ground, that your knees are going to be supported to some extent. And I know that there's been a study done by the British Sporting Journal of Medicine saying that there is actual no link, which is a big point, no link and no greater link to injuries from artificial pitches to grass pitches. But when you look at it, the number of ACL injuries, which is major knee anterior cruciate ligament injuries in the knee, especially in women's football, which is a high percentage of players on AstroTurf pitches, it's massive.
Yeah, I think, as you touched on, I play a lot of football, and for a lot of my life I played on grass. Last few years, since I've been at university, pretty much always on AstroTurf, and I feel the difference, or at least I think I do. As you say, there's no link between injuries, so maybe I'm either getting old or it's a placebo effect.
You are getting old now.
Yeah, I feel it. But I don't see how there can't be any link when I feel it in my knees so much the next day.
Well, that's the interesting thing, Ernie. Obviously, you brought up a report that was done, but rugby reports are a little bit different. The RFU said there's around a 5 to 10% higher chance of a lower body injury, which is really interesting. But the stats really aren't there. There's a lot of missing stats. Scottish Rugby Union states that if you get an injury on an AstroTurf pitch, you have to report it to the RFU. However, minor injuries you do not have to report, but they list burns and cuts as minor injuries. So that completely skews the results. And I think there needs to be a lot more done, because I also spoke to Molly Hart-Ryan, who is the medical lead at Fylde, and she said, while getting a physiotherapy degree and doing all of her training, she said there wasn't much information on the dangers of an AstroTurf pitch.
There wasn't like loads of mention of it, but both my dissertations for my undergrad and my masters, they were around concussions, and sometimes in that things about artificial pitches would come up, but like you found yourself, there's not kind of loads out there on it. But it's like it wasn't really something that kind of came up, like maybe around lateral ankle sprains, but that was about it.
Yeah, and I think that's such an issue that they've got minor results that, you know, some studies suggest that there's no change, and then some studies say that it's really, really bad. I've got another one here from the RFU from the 2016-17 season. They said there was a staggering difference in severity and quantity of injuries, but it obviously was only done in one season, so the statistics could be thrown anywhere. We just don't know.
Yeah, and I think that is why we're never going to see these pitches in, especially professional football, with, like you said, the injuries that are supposedly caused by the pitches, but Ernie said they're not caused by the pitches. I don't think we will see these Astroturf pitches in the professional game because the chance of injury, but in the non-league game, it is so vital for money.
And before we come to the end of this debate and all vote on what we think, I do think when you actually look at the bigger picture, and especially when we're focusing on these rugby and football clubs that aren't professional, it's massive. Lynsey said it before. It helps drive the standards in having these consistent pitches, which allows better football to be played. Because, let's be honest, teams can't afford to pay groundsmen full-time to keep the pitches immaculate. And these AstroTurf pitches allow the quality of football to be better, driving more money in, more people watching. And then also, like you mentioned, the community aspect. It's massive. The professional game is different. It is tough medical wise, but at this level of sport that we all play, that the majority of the country play, I do think the positives outweigh negatives.
See, I would have to disagree with you there, I think, because also while chatting to Toby, you know, I discuss these things, and the RFU, obviously, they know how much money it brings in, and yes, that's all well and good, and they've implemented certain things, like Lynsey mentioned. They're allowed to wear leggings now. You can put petroleum jelly on. But Toby Harrison said they're not a solution. They're just a Band-Aid on a much wider problem.
It's a Band-Aid on a bigger issue because not everyone can wear, in certain positions, can wear tights. Like, people wear blocks and stuff. You can't tape over tights, really. And petroleum jelly, as soon as you fall on the floor once, it's off. It doesn't stay on. So it's definitely a Band-Aid and doesn't help as much as you think.
Yeah, we've talked about the injury side of things, but we've also got to touch on the the environmental side of things. Sorry, as these pitches, they just take a lot of work to just sort of build, and there's so many of them. But we've also got to talk about the dreaded black bits.
Oh, the black bits, the black bits.
Yeah. A Spanish study found that over 213,000 turf fibres were found per square metre in the rivers and seas. But also, it's just, you got to think, they get everywhere, don't they? You know, and the rubber that's used in them is just going to be banned by the European Commission, by 2031.
We need to get rid of the batteries, really. You think you go home, everywhere. It's in your shower, it's in your bath. For me, that's why I think grass pitches over Astro all day, every day. Lynsey, what do you think?
No, I'm the complete opposite. I much prefer the AstroTurf, and as well, like, the economic benefits are huge. You know, there's that initial cost, but then the maintenance cost is low, and, you know, they're so easy to have. Like, they last 8 to 10 years, and they can be rented out for other events. And yeah, what do you think, Ernie?
I'd vote to keep him as well. I think they're brilliant. Although my mum will be upset because she'll still keep having to find these black bits all over the house. I do think it's really important to keep them for all the reasons mentioned, the economic impact, the quality of football impact, and I just do think that overall for the communities they're a massive, massive thing.
Yeah, I fully agree. I'm backing Astro all the way, but I don't think we'll ever see them in the professional game.
No.
I gotta go. I'm more of a grass man. I can't get past the back bits.
I think from a player perspective, it'll always be grass, but for especially non-league football clubs, which I can speak from a perspective of, it'll always be AstroTurf.
Stop sitting on the fence, come on.
I'm with grass.
Is that a draw then? Or is that
I was going to say, that doesn't help. It seems very split down the middle. So we've done a whole debate and we've come full circle. But I think it's time to move on to a little bit of rugby league.
Hey, what team? Wildcats! What team? Wildcats! What team? Wildcats! Wildcats! Get your head in the game!
That is correct. Earlier on this week, I went down to Accrington Wildcats, who have been given £1,500 to make youth subscriptions cheaper in an attempt to attract more players in what is a deprived area. Accrington isn't known to be very affluent. And I think this is a good thing to try and get people into rugby league, which isn't a massive sport. The North West is seen to be the home of rugby league, yet just 10,000 under-18s are taking part in rugby league in the North West. But I spoke to Nathan Benson, the chairman down at Accrington Wildcats, to tell me how good this £1,500 will be for Accrington.
We're on a 3G pitch, costs us £90 per hour, which is a lot when we're only charging them £12 a month. So it helps a lot. Any grants, anything like that does help a lot.
So as I said, yes, it's a big thing for this club that this money has been given to them to help run the club. Grassroots sport in general is huge. It's the base of sport right up to international level, held in very high respect. But I think the bigger issue is that no one is really helping out with rugby league. Like I said, just 10,000 under-18 rugby league players in the North West. There's 1.5 million under-18 boys that are playing football nationwide, which is a massive difference. And in 2023, there was just 55,000 people playing rugby league nationwide at any age. So it's never going to be able to keep up with football.
Yeah, just to touch on the comparison between rugby league and football, I think that 15,000 figure, it really shows the sort of disparity in funding between the two.
100%. I think if you look at football, they get a lot more attention. And I think that £1,500 will go a long way, but just not far enough.
Yeah, and just continuing with this trend, the grand final of rugby, which is the pinnacle of the sport, the other week between Wigan and Hull, was viewed by 455,000 at its peak. The most that viewed that game. That's the pinnacle of the sport. You then cast your eyes back to 2 years ago, United versus Liverpool FA Cup quarter-final, which is obviously a prestigious competition, but not the final, attracts 8.5 million. That shows the disparity between the sports, and it's going to take a lot more than £1,500 to pull that even 10% closer. It's going to take continuous efforts into the curriculum, into local shops, marketing, making sure that the right eyes are seeing this sport. And I do think it's got to become nationwide. They call it the heartland, the northwest of rugby league. It's where the three best clubs at the moment are in Saints, Wigan, and Warrington Wolves. It's where the majority of the sporting bed is from. I know you're shaking your head because Hull won, but that has been an anomaly. It's the first time they've won in decades. Yeah. It is the sporting hub for rugby league, but they've got to make it nationwide. And I know Will touch on it, but he's from down south, and there's no rugby league clubs.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. It needs to be started from grassroots up. It needs to be a complete refresh, I think, in my opinion. Right from the very bottom, and then that will help the top. Like you said, I'm from down south. I can find a football team to play for anywhere, a grassroots football team. I've got sort of 5 or 10 within a few mile radius of me. I could not find a single rugby league club to play for anywhere, nowhere near me. The last major rugby league club, you'd say, it was the London Broncos, and they're not even in the Super League anymore. So,
yeah, when I was down there at the Wildcats, I think they seem to think the issue lies in schools. They've been allowed to go and put posters up every now and again, and very rarely they get allowed to go and do a half an hour session after school time. They don't get very many attendees. The school don't push it, and I think they feel quite neglected by the curriculum, as rugby league just isn't played in PE in schools. I know, for example, I never did a session of rugby league at school. Yeah,
and before we get on to our last topic, I do think the major thing to touch on there is that in its area, Accrington, it's not an affluent area. Like you said, it's not got loads of investment into it, but to get rugby league up to where the football and your crickets are, it needs a little bit. £1,500 will get you to A, but years. To get you to the top, to keep pushing, it's going to take more than that. You've got to invest in these youth because you need to have that future-proof standard of rugby league, so that in 10 years' time they've got something to build on and keep pushing.
100%.
Yeah, Bobby, Ernie, absolutely. Thank you for talking a lot about that. You seem very passionate about it. What you're also passionate about was your unbelievable away day that you had last night.
Through for Kozia Dewberry! Oh, incredible! A dazzling finale from Bolton Wanderers!
I think that may be the 70th time I've heard that commentary since about 10 o'clock last night. It was quite possibly one of the greatest away days I've ever done. Everything about it, from the car journey down, from the TikTok that we did with Gabby in the afternoon, where you and Jack pessimistically said losses and I said a 0-0 draw, and it was just written in the stars.
Of course, if you don't know what we're talking about, last night was, of course, Huddersfield Town against Bolton Wanderers. And, of course, the Mighty Whites walked away with all 3 points after being 1-0 down with just 4 minutes to go. It was quite a spectacular night.
Yeah, you go 1-0 down after 6 minutes to a 5'6" man scoring a header from a corner. You think that sums up what the afternoon might be like. And up until 91 minutes, that was what the evening was like. Sorry, it was a game with very little quality in it. And it did feel like, up until it felt like, you've watched Wanderers for years, it feels like one of them games where you'd be the better team, but they'd snatch a second late on and you'd be licking your wounds. But Sam Dalby and the Mario Cozy
He's a
Dubry.
salmon, isn't he? And the little man.
I'll tell you what,
Dubry popping up.
I can't believe that you two have come in today with your voices still firmly intact, which is great for this, because I'm going to ask you now, we're going to shift up to the Premier League very quickly. I want to go around the table, I want to ask everyone predictions. We've got Manchester City versus Everton, obviously a big game, and then we've got probably the biggest game in English football in Liverpool Man United. Lynsey, what do you think, as a Spurs fan as well?
I think City are going to cruise through this. I'm saying 2-0 to City. Haaland's been so strong this season, and City have actually gone unbeaten in their last 16 runs against Everton. And funnily enough, David Moyes' team have never beaten a top 3 side away from home.
That's an awful
crazy.
He's been in management for so long.
I think he's older than my dad. he's old.
As well as that, they haven't got Grealish available. Obviously, he's on loan from City. So, yeah, what do you think, Will, about the fixture as a City fan?
Well, I'm slightly more pessimistic than you, I have to say. I mean, I think City will win. I think it will probably be something like a 2-1. Bobby, I remember speaking to you about this to you earlier. I think Everton can throw some surprises up there. They've played really well. I think 2-1, maybe City go down early on.
Yeah, I think Everton will score. Like you said, the Grealish miss is going to be massive. He's been the heart to Everton this year. I think they will score, but Haaland, I feel a Haaland hat-trick coming 3-1 at City for me.
Yeah, and when you touch on that, you go from Jack Grealish to Tyler Diblin, and that's no disrespect to Tyler Diblin, but the effect that Grealish has had on the Everton side this year is just monumental, and it will be a big loss. But I do think, like you said, they'll give City a game, but I think it's Haaland's just in red hot form at the moment. I could see it being 2-3-1 with Haaland grabbing a couple, and then onto, like Will said, the biggest game, another Merseyside versus Manchester clash in United versus Liverpool. Oliver, how do you see this one going?
I think it'll be a pretty open game, to be honest. I think Liverpool, they haven't looked fantastic to start the season, I'll be completely honest with you. And I think Man United are Man United at this point. I think we can all agree. But I think I could go for 3-2 to Liverpool. Pretty open game, but Liverpool have just been so, up until recently, they've been so sort of clutching those sort of moments, you know.
You have to remember they're still playing United, though. So it could be double figures. It doesn't matter how bad Liverpool are playing. It is still Man United.
That's a good point.
I'll give my input as a Liverpool fan myself. I think you were right, Oliver. I think the results and the points tally don't match the performances this season. And I've got to be honest, there's been about one game in my lifetime where I've been fully confident against United. I hate the game. I hate it. Even if we're top of the table, they're 10th, I hate it. But I think we should have enough. United haven't looked at it. I'll say 3-1 and be optimistic, and that is optimistic for me. I
tell you what, you sound like the most stressed Liverpool fan I've ever met. You are the best club in the country. You've won countless league titles. He's an Exeter fan, 2 Bolton fans, a Spurs fan, and a Cambridge fan sat on the table with you. I don't really feel like you have a right to get this worried about it. And what I would say, I would love United to win just to see this hair grow a bit longer on this United fan, give him a bit more confidence. And then when it gets to the 3rd, 4th game, then let him lose and he has to go all the way back down again.
Criminal that a Bolton Wanderers fan is saying, I hope Manchester United win this game.
It's a wild statement.
I'd love to raise his confidence.
I think we should all start growing our hair out like that United fan. I think we should all do it. It might be interesting.
I'd love to see what shampoo he uses. It's in red now. He's dyed it red as well, if you didn't know. He's got a red afro, yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's going all in. Right, Lynsey, final tie cast or something. What do you think?
I think Liverpool 2-1.
Ernie?
I think Liverpool 3-2.
4-0 Liverpool.
3-2, I've got to agree with Ernie.
I'll stick my prediction 3-1 Liverpool.
I tell you what, I'll put £1 on Bet365 on a 9-0 win, and it might come in.
We are not promoting gambling on this
Of course
podcast.
not, of course. BeGambleAware.com, of course. But that is just about everything. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We've completed our shopping list of chat and debate all about sport. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening as well. And we shall see you next time.